People think the worst pain a man can feel is losing money. They're wrong. The worst pain is watching the woman you promised forever slowly stop believing in you. My name is Marcus Bennett, and for 10 years, I thought I had the perfect marriage. When I met Danielle, we had absolutely nothing. We were just two dreamers sharing cheap takeout on the hood of my beat-up Honda Civic after long shifts at work. Back then, she used to laugh at everything I said. She believed in every crazy dream I had. She once held my hand beneath a sky full of stars and whispered, "Even if we're poor forever, as long as we're together, I'm already rich." I believed her. God, I believed every single word. For years, life was beautiful. We rented a tiny one-bedroom apartment with squeaky floors and leaky windows. Every Friday night became our tradition. Pizza, a movie, blankets on the couch. No phones, no distractions. Just us. When I finally landed a management position at a regional logistics company, everything seemed to be falling into place. We bought our first house. Nothing extravagant. 3 bedrooms, a small backyard. White picket fence. It wasn't a mansion. It was home. Danielle cried the day we got the keys. She wrapped her arms around my neck and said, "We actually did it." I kissed her forehead. We did. Not me. Us. That's how I always saw life. If I won, we won. If I lost, we lost. Marriage wasn't supposed to keep score. Or at least, that's what I believed. Then life happened. The company I'd spent nearly 12 years helping build announced a massive restructuring. Hundreds of employees were laid off. I still remember sitting in the conference room as my manager struggled to avoid eye contact. "I'm sorry, Marcus." Those 3 words changed everything. I walked out carrying a cardboard box with family pictures, a coffee mug Danielle had bought me, and a framed Employee of the Year certificate that suddenly felt meaningless. I didn't cry. Not there. Not in front of everyone. I waited until I sat alone inside my car. Then reality hit me like a freight train. I stared through the windshield for nearly an hour before turning the key. How was I supposed to tell Danielle? How could I tell the woman who trusted me with her future that I had just lost the job keeping our lives together? When I got home, she knew immediately. She looked at my box, then at my face. "You got laid off?" I nodded silently. She hugged me without saying another word. For a moment, I thought everything would be okay. "I'll find something else," I whispered. "I know you will," she replied, and I believed her. For the first few weeks, she really was supportive. She helped me update my resume. She searched job listings. She even made coffee before every interview. Every rejection hurt, but having her beside me softened the pain, until the bills started piling up. Mortgage, insurance, utilities, credit cards. Every month became another impossible puzzle. Savings disappeared faster than I expected. Then something inside Danielle slowly changed. It wasn't sudden, it was almost invisible. She smiled less. She laughed less. She spent more time scrolling through social media than talking to me. Everywhere she looked, someone was buying a new house. Someone was driving a luxury SUV. Someone was vacationing in Dubai. Meanwhile, I was celebrating callbacks that never came. One evening she looked up from her phone. "You know Jasmine's husband just bought her a Mercedes?" I smiled weakly. "That's nice." She didn't smile back. "I just thought we'd be further along by now." The words stung. Not because they were cruel, because they were true. Weeks became months. I accepted temporary warehouse jobs, delivery work, construction shifts, anything that paid. My hands became rough again. My back constantly ached. I came home exhausted every night. Still, it wasn't enough. One Saturday afternoon, I walked into our kitchen carrying grocery bags. Danielle was talking to her mother on speakerphone. She didn't know I'd come inside. "I can't keep living like this, Mom." A pause. I know he tries." Another pause. "But trying doesn't pay mortgages." Silence. Then I heard the sentence that changed everything. "You deserve a real provider," her mother said. Danielle didn't defend me. She didn't argue. She simply whispered, "I know." I quietly walked back outside before she saw me. I sat inside my truck for almost an hour. Not because I was angry. Because I was heartbroken. That night, she acted as though nothing had happened. I did the same. Sometimes love dies long before anyone admits it. Months passed. Arguments became normal. Tiny disagreements turned into shouting matches, dirty dishes, late bills, missed interviews. Everything became ammunition. One evening, she exploded. "I'm tired, Marcus." "I know." "No, you don't." She slammed a stack of unpaid bills onto the kitchen counter. "I'm tired of pretending everything will magically get better. I'm trying. I don't want trying anymore." Her voice echoed through the house we'd once celebrated together. "I want stability. I want security. I want a husband who can actually provide." The silence afterward felt louder than the shouting. 3 days later, she asked me to sit down. There was a large envelope on the dining table. My stomach tightened. She wouldn't even look at me. "I've made my decision." I stared at the envelope. My heart pounded. Then she slowly slid it across the table. I looked down. The words printed across the top made my vision blur. "Petition for dissolution of marriage." I looked back up at the woman I'd loved for 10 years. She finally met my eyes. And the next words out of her mouth shattered everything I thought I knew about love. "Marcus, I'm divorcing you." The room fell into complete silence. Marcus stared at the divorce papers, as though they were written in a language he couldn't understand. His hands trembled. His throat tightened so badly he couldn't force out a single word. Danielle folded her arms across her chest, refusing to meet his eyes. "I didn't want it to end like this," she finally whispered. Marcus looked up, his voice barely audible. "So, this is it?" She nodded once. "I can't keep living this way." He swallowed hard. "We've survived worse." "No, Marcus." Her tone became cold. "We've survived because I kept believing things would change." "They will." "When?" "I don't know, but they will." She laughed bitterly. "That's always your answer." Marcus pushed the papers away. "Please don't do this." She stood from the table. "I already have." For nearly an hour they talked. Or rather, Marcus begged. He reminded her of the apartment where they first lived together, the cheap pizza nights, the road trips with no destination, their wedding vows, the house they'd built together. Every memory seemed priceless to him. To Danielle, they sounded like stories from another lifetime. "I can't spend the rest of my life waiting for you to catch a break," she said. "I'm not asking you to wait forever." "You already have." Marcus lowered his head. "I still love you." She closed her eyes for a brief second before answering. "I know, but love isn't paying our bills." Those words cut deeper than anything she'd ever said. The following weeks felt like a nightmare that refused to end. Lawyers replaced conversations. Emails replaced affection. Every meeting ended with another argument. Their house, once filled with laughter, became painfully quiet. The family photos disappeared from the walls. The wedding album vanished from the bookshelf. Danielle even removed the framed picture of them standing in front of their first home. It was as though she was erasing every trace that Marcus had ever existed. Then came the courtroom. Marcus had never imagined that the place where justice was supposed to live could feel so cold. The judge reviewed documents, assets, accounts, mortgage records, retirement funds, vehicle ownership. Years of hard work were reduced to stacks of paperwork. Danielle's attorney was ruthless. "Your Honor, my client contributed significantly to the acquisition and maintenance of these marital assets." Marcus's lawyer did what he could, but there wasn't much to fight. Months without stable income had weakened Marcus's financial position. The final ruling landed like a hammer. Danielle kept the house, the SUV, most of the savings, the investment portfolio, nearly every valuable asset they'd accumulated during their marriage. Marcus was awarded a modest settlement after debts and legal costs. It barely covered the first month's rent on a tiny apartment. When the hearing ended, everyone slowly walked toward the exit. Marcus remained seated. His attorney placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry," Marcus nodded without speaking. Outside the courthouse, reporters weren't waiting. There were no cameras. No dramatic music. Just gray clouds hanging over the city. Danielle stood beside her attorney. She looked elegant in a cream-colored suit. Confident, composed, almost relieved. Marcus walked toward the parking lot carrying a single duffel bag. Everything he owned fit inside it. A few shirts, a pair of jeans, family photographs he couldn't bring himself to throw away, and his wedding ring. Before he reached his truck, Danielle called his name. He turned. For one brief second, he hoped she'd changed her mind. Instead, she walked over and held out a small envelope. "What's this?" "Your share after everything." Marcus looked inside. The amount almost made him laugh. 10 years of marriage, reduced to a number that wouldn't even buy a used car. He looked at her. "You really think this is what our life together was worth?" She avoided the question. "I think it's fair." Marcus slowly closed the envelope. "I would have given you everything anyway. I know." She hesitated, then said something he'd never forget. "You'll understand one day." Marcus smiled sadly. "No, I don't think I ever will." She turned and walked toward her luxury SUV without looking back. Marcus watched her disappear into traffic. That wasn't just the end of his marriage. It was the funeral of the future he'd spent a decade building. The apartment he rented was barely 500 square feet. The paint was peeling. The refrigerator hummed loudly all night. The mattress rested directly on the floor because he couldn't afford a bed frame. His kitchen consisted of 2 plates, 1 frying pan, and a microwave he'd bought from a thrift store. The first night there, he sat alone eating instant noodles. The silence was unbearable. No footsteps upstairs. No television in the other room. No Danielle asking how his day went. Just silence. He picked up his wedding ring, rolled it between his fingers, then quietly placed it inside a small wooden box. "I hope you're happy," he whispered. Not because he hated her, because part of him still loved her. Couth. The following months tested him in ways he never imagined. During the day he worked wherever anyone would hire him. Construction, warehouse loading, furniture delivery, night shift stocking shelves. Some days he worked 16 hours. Other days, no one called. He learned to stretch every dollar. Skip meals, walk instead of driving, cancel subscriptions, sell old belongings. His pride disappeared long before his money did. Yet something strange happened. The anger he expected never came. Instead, he slowly found peace. Without constant arguments, he slept better. Without trying to prove his worth every day, he smiled more. He started jogging each morning. reading books again, going to church on Sundays. Little by little, the broken man began rebuilding himself. He wasn't wealthy, he wasn't successful, but for the first time in months, he wasn't pretending. Then one rainy Friday evening, after finishing another exhausting warehouse shift, Marcus stopped at a small convenience store to buy bottled water and a sandwich. As he reached the cashier, the elderly woman behind the counter smiled warmly. "You look like you could use some good luck today." Marcus chuckled. "I wouldn't even know what that feels like." She held up a stack of lottery tickets. "Humor an old lady. I don't play. First time for everything." Marcus almost said no. Then he noticed a crumpled $20 bill in his wallet. Cash he'd forgotten was there. He stared at it for a moment, shrugged. "Fine. Give me one." The machine printed a single ticket. He folded it once, slipped it into his jacket pocket, and walked back into the rain. Completely unaware that the tiny piece of paper he had just bought was about to change not only his life, but the life of the woman who believed she had already written the final chapter of his story. The lottery ticket stayed in Marcus's jacket pocket for 3 days. He almost forgot it was there. Life had taught him not to expect miracles. Winning a jackpot was something that happened to strangers on television, not to a man who counted every dollar before buying groceries. Monday morning arrived like every other. Marcus woke before sunrise in his tiny apartment. Rain tapped softly against the window as he ironed the only navy blue shirt he owned. After making instant coffee, he checked his phone. An advertisement caught his attention. $500 million grand jackpot draw. Live tonight at 8 p.m. He smiled to himself. Someone's about to become the luckiest person in America. Then he slipped his phone into his pocket and headed to work. The warehouse was unusually busy. Forklifts buzzed between towering shelves. Pallets slammed onto concrete floors. Marcus spent nearly 10 hours unloading shipments without stopping. By the end of his shift, every muscle in his body ached. As he changed out of his work boots, his co-worker, Luis, grinned. "You watching the jackpot tonight?" Marcus laughed. "I've got better odds of getting struck by lightning." Luis shrugged. "Can't win if you don't play." Marcus reached into his jacket to grab his keys. His fingers brushed against something folded. The lottery ticket. He pulled it out. "I actually bought one." Luis's eyes widened. "Then you better watch." Marcus smiled. "Not expecting anything. You never know." Saul. At exactly 7:45 p.m., Marcus stopped by the neighborhood diner. Several customers were already gathered around a giant television mounted above the counter. The waitress recognized him immediately. "Marcus, you're just in time." He ordered coffee and sat quietly near the back. On the television, bright lights, a cheering audience. Music echoed through the massive studio. The host stepped onto the stage, wearing a sparkling navy suit. "Ladies and gentlemen," the audience erupted. "Tonight, the jackpot has reached an unbelievable $500 million. The crowd exploded into applause. Marcus casually removed the folded ticket from his wallet. He placed it beside his coffee. Not because he expected anything, just because it felt fun to play along. Across the city, Danielle Bennett had just finished dinner inside her luxurious condominium. The divorce settlement had allowed her to upgrade her lifestyle. Her living room overlooked the glittering skyline. Marble floors reflected the afternoon sunlight that still lingered through the massive windows. She wore an elegant red silk dress. Gold earrings sparkled beneath perfectly styled hair. Soft jazz played through hidden ceiling speakers. She poured herself a fresh glass of orange juice before sitting comfortably on her cream-colored sofa. The television happened to be on. She wasn't even paying attention. The live lottery show had started automatically after another program ended. She picked up her phone, strolled through social media, smiled at vacation photos. For the first time in months, life finally felt stable. Then, the television host spoke. Tonight, one American's life is about to change forever. She barely glanced up. Back inside the television studio, the lights dimmed dramatically. The audience became silent. The transparent lottery machine began spinning. Dozens of white balls bounced wildly inside the glass chamber. Marcus leaned back in his chair. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't excited. He simply watched. The first number rolled into place. 11. He looked down. His ticket showed. He chuckled. Well, one isn't bad. The second ball appeared. 23. Marcus blinked. His ticket. The waitress noticed. You've got 2. He smiled nervously. Just a coincidence. The third number. 37. His smile disappeared. He checked again. Exactly the same. His heartbeat quickened. Luis's words echoed inside his mind. You never know. The customers around him slowly leaned closer. Someone whispered, "Keep checking." Inside her apartment, Danielle had now placed her phone on the coffee table. She watched casually. The audience inside the television studio looked unbelievably excited. She shook her head. Imagine winning that. She laughed softly. If only life worked that way. The fourth number rolled out. 42. Marcus's breathing became uneven. His hands began trembling. Coffee spilled slightly across the table. He stared. Every number matched. The waitress stopped walking. The entire diner became strangely quiet. Someone said, "No way." Marcus couldn't move. Back on the lottery stage, the television host smiled dramatically. We're getting close. If someone has these 4 numbers, they're 1 number away from changing history. The audience roared. Confetti cannons stood ready beside the stage. Television cameras slowly swept across the cheering crowd. Though, Danielle frowned. She wasn't interested anymore. She reached for the remote. Before she could change the channel, the camera inside the television studio suddenly focused on contestants holding tickets. For a split second, a familiar face appeared. She froze. No. She leaned closer. The image disappeared almost immediately. Her heart skipped. It couldn't be. She shook her head. I'm imagining things. I'm imagining things. That Marcus could barely breathe. His entire body felt numb. His fingers squeezed the ticket so tightly it nearly tore. The host lifted the final ball. This is worth $500 million. The audience stood. Complete silence filled the studio. Every camera focused on the glowing machine. Marcus whispered under his breath. Please, not because he expected to win, but because, for the first time in months, he allowed himself to hope. The final ball slowly rolled forward, and the entire nation held its breath. The final lottery ball rolled slowly through the transparent tube. Marcus couldn't hear the audience anymore. He couldn't hear the music. He couldn't even hear his own breathing. Everything around him faded into silence. The ball clicked into place. 49. Marcus stared at his ticket. His vision blurred. His hands shook so violently that he almost dropped it. He checked again. 11, 23, 37, 42, 49. Every single number matched. For nearly 5 seconds he didn't move. He simply stared. No. His voice cracked. This isn't real. The waitress rushed beside him. Marcus. He handed her the ticket without saying a word. She compared it to the television. then compared it again. Her eyes grew wide. Oh, my God. The entire diner leaned closer. One man grabbed his phone flashlight. Another customer pulled up the official lottery numbers online. Every result was the same. Marcus Bennett had just won $500 million. Back inside the television studio, the host received confirmation through his earpiece. His expression changed instantly. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a jackpot winner. The audience exploded. Confetti cannons fired across the stage. Golden paper filled the air. Music thundered through the studio. Television cameras searched for the winner. A producer who had already verified Marcus's ticket approached him. "Sir, are you Marcus Bennett?" Marcus slowly nodded. I think so." The producer laughed. "You just became $500 million richer." Marcus covered his mouth. Tears instantly filled his eyes. I can't believe this." The audience began chanting. "Marcus! Marcus! Marcus!" Television cameras surrounded him. Microphones appeared from every direction. A security team carefully escorted him toward the stage. His legs felt weak. Every step seemed unreal. The host embraced him. "Congratulations." Marcus couldn't speak. He simply cried. Not loud, not dramatically. Just quiet tears from a man who had carried too much pain for too long. An assistant rolled out an enormous ceremonial check. Across the front, in giant bold letters, it read, $500 million, jackpot winner, Marcus Bennett. The crowd erupted again. Flashing cameras illuminated the stage like lightning. Marcus lifted the check with trembling hands. His smile wasn't the smile of a rich man. It was the smile of someone who finally believed life hadn't forgotten him. Across town, Danielle sat comfortably on her cream-colored sofa. She reached for her glass of orange juice. The television host smiled toward the camera. "Let's meet tonight's historic winner." The camera slowly zoomed in. Marcus's face filled the screen. Danielle frowned. "No." The television displayed his full name. Marcus Bennett. She immediately sat upright. "No." Her heartbeat doubled. "This isn't possible." The camera showed Marcus lifting the massive check. The amount covered nearly half the screen. $500 million. The glass slipped from Danielle's fingers. It shattered across the marble floor. Orange juice splashed across the white coffee table and expensive rug. She didn't even notice. Her mouth slowly opened. Her breathing became shallow. Her hands began shaking uncontrollably. "No. No. No." Tears instantly filled her eyes. She stared at the television in complete disbelief. 4 months earlier, she had looked this same man in the eyes and told him he'd never become anything. Now, the entire country was celebrating him. The television host asked gently, "Marcus, what's the first thing going through your mind right now?" Marcus wiped away tears. For several seconds, he couldn't answer. Finally, he smiled. "I've spent the last 4 months wondering if life was ever going to give me another chance." The audience applauded. "I lost my marriage. I lost my home. I lost almost everything I worked for." His voice trembled. "But somewhere along the way, I found myself again." The audience stood. Many were crying. Marcus looked directly into the nearest television camera. "If anyone watching feels like life is over, please don't give up. Your next chapter might be closer than you think." The studio erupted into a standing ovation. Danielle covered her mouth. Those words hit harder than the jackpot itself. He wasn't insulting her. He wasn't exposing her. He wasn't trying to embarrass her. He was simply being Marcus. The same kind-hearted man she'd fallen in love with years ago. Only now, the entire world could see what she had thrown away. She remembered every argument, every cruel word, every time she'd compared him to another man. Every moment she'd made him feel like a failure. Her knees gave out. She slowly slid onto the floor beside the broken glass. "I'm so sorry," she whispered to an empty room. But the apology came 4 months too late. Within hours, the story dominated every news channel. Warehouse worker wins $500 million jackpot. Man rebuilds his life after devastating divorce. America's newest multimillionaire inspires millions. Marcus's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Former co-workers, old friends, distant relatives, people who hadn't spoken to him in years suddenly remembered his number. He politely ignored every call. He wasn't interested in revenge or proving anyone wrong. That night, he returned to his tiny apartment one final time. He placed the wooden box containing his wedding ring on the kitchen counter. He looked around the empty room that had witnessed his darkest nights. Then he smiled peacefully. Thank you. Not for the pain, but for teaching him that his worth had never been measured by his bank account. The next morning, Marcus met with financial advisors, attorneys, and security professionals to protect his winnings and plan for the future. He also decided to establish a charitable foundation to help families facing sudden unemployment, remembering exactly how hopeless those first months had felt. As the sun rose over the city, Marcus stepped outside, no longer carrying the weight of trying to prove himself to anyone. The divorce had taken almost everything he owned. It had not taken his character. And in the end, that was the one thing that made him rich, long before the lottery ever did. True wealth is never measured by money, houses, or status. It is measured by character. Marcus lost his job, marriage, home, and financial security, yet he refused to lose his integrity, kindness, or hope. His journey teaches that difficult seasons reveal who we truly are, and that temporary failure is never the end of our story. Success gained without character is empty, but character preserved through hardship becomes an unshakable foundation for future blessings. Never judge your worth by your current circumstances. Keep growing, keep believing, and never give up, because your greatest breakthrough may arrive when you least expect it.